What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Biblical Hitman. It's me, Steven. You know what time it is, baby. We got content here flowing. The show must keep rolling. And so, but Jesse and Taylor, they're unfortunately not going to be with us tonight. Got a few technical difficulties. And of course, Taylor has been, his tattoo session has exceeded the limit. But that's why he's not here tonight, folks. But I got these two gentlemen in the house, Greg and Flex. They are a part of the Strange Sauna Conspiracies Show. And this is where the conspiracies sweat out all the details, folks. And they've got a great show. If you want to support our platforms, make sure you head over to YouTube, hit that subscribe button, like the show, share it with your friends, and drop a comment down below about anything of everything. This is the only area where we get to engage with the audience. And, you can check us out on all audio platforms as well. Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, and Spotify. Anywhere you can consume your podcast content, you can find us there. Just hit that search bar, type in the names. We'll be right there. But Greg, Flex, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining the show. This is actually an awesome opportunity to have you guys on and to make some content with you. And just what a moment for me, man, because I've been, a follower of your show for a while now.
Awesome. Yeah, I have to say thank you to the Biblical Hitmen family for inviting Flex and I on the show. Thanks for having us, Steven. You guys are awesome too, man. I mean, you guys put out excellent content. You're talking about the same stuff that we kind of talk about, the deep dives into some biblical topics, some just conspiracy topics, some like, hey, we go all over the place. But Thanks for having us, man. Appreciate it.
Man. Yeah, absolutely. So real quick, I got both of you guys on, so sometimes this is like who goes first or whatever. But Flex, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, and then we'll go to Greg right afterwards, and just tell us a little bit about yourself and everything like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, my stage name is Flex, but my real name is J. John. I live up here in Canada. Yes, don't hold that against me, folks. I'm sorry, but I'm up here in BC, Canada, and I was lucky enough to find Greg and his other guys that had their other show, PMA. In 2020, when the lockdown started in March, I was working out at home because I'm a strength and conditioning coach, and I also do editing. So I was like, okay, I'll work out at home and do my editing. And I found those guys, and it was a great group of followers on there. We have a great family on here with our show. And Greg, I think a year ago, I'm not sure, our anniversary is probably coming up, Greg.
I think it's here. I don't know. We might have passed it. I don't know.
We might have passed it. So Greg just invited me on and was like, I'd like to have you on because I think I like him and everyone else that watches the show here. I do like to talk. I do my Flex rants once in a while and stuff like that. But it's just awesome to be a part of this, and that's all because of Greg and the show that he created probably about a year or two ago.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, so I guess that's a good segue.
Ta-da!
So I've been in the podcast realm since 2019, 2018. I started a show called Pardon My American with two of my best friends, and that was an experience in its own because we kind of grew in popularity for our conspiracy content when we were kind of more of a political show, but I was always the conspiracy guy. And we would have another guy, Dave, on the show. So he was like the non-conspiracy guy. I was the conspiracy guy. So we kind of would battle back and forth on these ideas. And, a lot of people would say it's like my left side and my right side of my brain fighting or arguing with itself. You know what I mean? So a lot of people like that kind of content. That show ended abruptly last May. So not too long ago. It just scheduling conflicts. The guys, those guys moved to Texas, a couple of years ago. And then, so the time changes and then they just got swing shift jobs. So it just didn't work out. Meanwhile, while we were doing that, we kind of shifted gears in the topics that we discussed. And so we talked a lot less about the conspiracy stuff. Mm-hmm. So I took it upon myself to start the Strange Sauna. So this is literally a sauna in my house.
I love it.
And so I converted it, and I'm like, hey, because when we bought this house, the person gutted the sauna. They took all the innards, they took all the motor and everything. So it was literally just the sauna room. And I'm like, this is a perfect spot for a nice, tidy podcast room. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No,
The sound is great. It's dead in here. I mean, it's just you can't ask for better. So
I love it, man. I love it. I was familiar with the sauna. When I came across it, I think it had to be a few years ago. I can't remember exactly, but this was when I was a content consumer. Now I'm a content creator. So really, I don't have much time to consume content because I'm constantly working on putting things out there now.
Right.
And I don't look at myself like a piece of the propaganda. I kind of I look at myself like I put my own wrap around things and give my own piece on all of the things that are taking place in the world. But this makes me think of when I saw your content, it had to be a few years ago now. I can't remember, but you did a short video on the dates 9/23,
yes.
where it was in a lot of predictive programming, is in a lot of Hollywood movies, it's in a lot of symbolism. And I just started doing a bunch of research on it or whatever.
Right.
And this had to be like, I think around the same time where the sustainable development goals for the New World Order, aka the United Nations, but where they had their days started on 9/23, which was I think was a Monday that year, and it went through the week. And I was like, oh, dude, I'm like, I just saw this video. I'm like, it's around this time or something where the United Nations is doing this on this date. I'm like, there's something to do with this date. I don't really know exactly what it is, but there is a conspiracy behind it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's like the fall equinox typically will be on the 23rd. So there's a lot that goes back to this September 23rd conspiracy. So many movies have September 23rd be like a nuclear disaster, a volcano goes off, some sort of like asteroid hits it's just the end of the world scenario. And it's like, it's been around. It's been this long kind of trending conspiracy for many, many years. I mean, some of the comments on the video are just like, oh, great. Here we go again. Every time this year or this time the year rolls around, it's got to show up.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, it's, I mean, there might be some biblical aspects to September 23rd as well. I don't know if that's been tied back to like the origins or like the original birth of Jesus Christ, right? Because the feast of what was it, like the Feast of Tabernacles or something?
Right.
There's something around there. I'm sorry, I'm not like super familiar with the biblical content, but I know that with 923, I don't know how many that was listed in that video. There was probably like 23, no pun intended, different examples of this date just coming up. And so, like, what did you think of the date?
Yeah, it's funny because like I seen the date in so many things. The date kind of, at least from a biblical perspective, I think it's not just specific on one date, right? It's like
Right.
9/23, 9/24, 9/25, right, or something like that. At least from when I went back and did some homework on it. But if I do consider those 3 days, it's like, is this something that, because there's what we get into, right? These conspiracies, they're led a lot by, the occult. Like the occult is behind a lot of this stuff, right? You can't really like deny that anymore.
Right.
And
Yeah,
just,
absolutely.
getting into Manly P. Hall's book, Secret Destiny of America, he really was talking a lot about Freemasonry and the symbols of the United States and what the agenda is for America from the founding fathers and how they kind of, set forth this country to where it's at today. But it's basically going to be this this piece of Atlantis that is ruling the rest of Atlantis. If that makes any kind of sense, maybe, like in the New World Order, like there's going to be still an order of things, or let's just say there's going to be 10 kingdoms, right? 10 kings and things like that. Cause I always wrap things around Atlantis, and Atlantis had 10 kingdoms, 10 kings and 10 governments. So biblically, when I look at that, when John is writing Revelation, right, about the whole end of the world type deal, he sees this beast coming out of the sea with 7 heads and 10 horns. The 10 horns is supposed to signify that these are kings of the earth, right? So that, and so I'm like, okay, so there's a lot of concepts with the 10 kings and all this kind of stuff. But back to the Manly P. Hall book is he's talking about that there will be one ruler here that is like destined for America, and that this ruler is going to have like supernatural powers and come from a certain bloodline that technically is possibly, eh, a supernatural bloodline. So I'm like, okay, what the heck is that? So I always look at the fact where when we talk about the Antichrist, it's always going to be like a counterfeit of Christ. So Christ died and resurrected in 3 days, right? So if those dates resemble 3 days, I'm wondering if that's like the apotheosis dates that they are hoping that this ritual would be fulfilled on. And I don't know.
Mhm.
This is like conspiracy, right?
Oh yeah.
This is why it's fun to talk about this stuff.
But they love their dates, and I think
Yes.
I have a hard time when I'm talking to my friends that aren't awake to this stuff yet. And they are watching our show now and they're like, oh, okay. And I'm like, listen, it may not mean anything to you guys, but to them, it means everything. The 9/11 number was in tons of movie. The Matrix. I'm trying to think. There was a whole bunch.
The Patriot, nine
Patriot,
pounds 11 ounces.
9 pounds 11 ounces. When the
Oh
chair
my goodness.
when the chair breaks. There's a very famous photo of someone sitting after the buildings were built, and he's sitting here like this, and I'm not too sure who it was. He's inside the World Trade Center, and his watch said 9/11 on it. So they had planned this for decades. They love their dates, and I just explained to people, look, it may not mean anything to us, but to them it means the world, right? So and Greg's very good at doing that stuff. I'm very surface level. I bring all the easy stuff, and Greg does the very deep dives where he'll come in and ties everything together. And I think that's why people love the show, because from the episodes that you were watching with Greg when he was doing it solo, he had some amazing episodes where just deep dives into a lot of this, and a lot of it has to deal with moons and dates and cycles and stuff like that.
Right. It's a lot of astrology, right? A lot of
Yeah.
astrology and numerology behind all this kind of occult practice, man. We had a guy on the show, the Real Donut, right? Donut Factory. I don't know if you guys
Oh
are
heck
familiar
yeah.
with
Yeah,
him.
we love him.
Yeah.
We've had him on too.
We had
Oh,
him on
nice.
too.
Yeah. And I actually got to meet him in person. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the podcast Nephilim Death Squad, but they're not
Yeah.
too far from me. They actually threw with the Bohemian Grove, which I love the name, by the way. It's such a funny name to kind of counteract what these elites and these superpowers and these celebrities are doing in a 1700 redwood acred forest in California called the Bohemian Grove, where they
Right.
sacrifice to Moloch and all this kind of stuff. But I actually got to meet him out there at that event, and it was just a real good time. And we hit it off, and we were able to make some content after all of that.
Cool.
I saw you guys, man. You guys made a really good show based off of this most recent tragic event, right, that took place where we had a transgender, I don't really, I don't want to know what to call them, but just transgender, and they went in and they shot up a Catholic school, man. I mean, what are your guys' thoughts with that whole story?
Well, I mean, I'm gonna watch what we say here, but
Right.
um, so I watched I'm heavily involved on Telegram. We have a Telegram chat, so if anybody's on Telegram, they can join Strange Sauna Conspiracies. I'm on there pretty much every day. Somebody shared a video about propaganda psyops, and there's like 4 or 5 levels, like emotion, political, all this stuff, right? And so like the things to look out for a propaganda movement. So something that like the intelligence agencies will put forward into the news cycle to get you to think or fear something. And shootings with transgenders is definitely a trend.
Oh yeah.
Right. And so that is one thing. And it is a Republican talking point. So the Republicans want to, they used to be all about defending guns. I don't hear a lot about that anymore.
No.
But now it's just about transgenders playing in sports, like men playing in female sports, and then also immigration. Those are the 2 main talking points on the Republican side. Now, Donald Trump came in and he is supposed to be, solving all these issues. But going back to this shooting, not to go like heavily on Trump, I think that when you look at what was going on here and you see what was written all over his weapons, it's very conflicting, because he had things like 6 million wasn't enough, referring to Jews, right? And then so you're thinking, okay, so this guy doesn't like Jews. And then he goes and shoots up a Catholic school with a bunch of Christians. And then he's saying something like even unalive Trump, right? Like Trump needs to be unalived. He was saying stuff about just random events where you're like, he had left and right talking points all over his weapons. And when that happens, you have to really take a step back and question, like, what was this what was this guy really trying to do? What was the message sent here? And so everybody, and he even had like released the list. And so you're thinking, okay, the normal person might equate a psychopath who wants to go shoot up a school and kill children with someone who wants to release the Epstein list. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, if you want to release the Epstein list, you might want to shoot up a school. And it's like, that is the programming that they're trying to put forward here.
Yeah, I would agree. I actually said it was giving me a bit of a Sandy Hook feeling with the way the parents were talking. And there was one video of a child that said, I covered the other kid to help him, and it looked all scripted. And like I said on yesterday's live show, listen, I don't want any, I'm not saying it's not real. I just was like, they will use, order, chaos out of order all the time. And this could push an agenda. And I think going back to the transgender, recently I saw a list of how many shootings have happened in the last 2 years and how many are transgender, and it's almost all of them. And I think by using transgender, they don't look at the crime. They just go, oh, well, don't make this person to be what they're not or whatever. And this kid obviously in his manifesto said he wished he probably didn't
like transition.
Thank you. Transition. So many trans that. His mom worked at the school, and I think maybe it was a way to get back at his mom, maybe because she retired in 2021. And keep in mind, folks, we know more about this guy in the first 2 hours after this happened than we do from the guy that apparently shot Trump over a year ago. And that's where I kind of look and go, how is that possible? How does CNN have within 2 hours all this information, but there's no information on what could have been one of the worst assassinations ever? So you put all that together and it's just a bunch of malarkey, It's just kind of like, something fishy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with you. It smells MK Ultra, like, to me,
Absolutely.
And I really think that in the day that we're living in today, it's not like it used to be in the 40s where they'd hit you with, they'd hit your sensory receptors, visuals, sounds, all kinds of things like this to start to reprogram the mind, right? Like, we know that Sigmund Freud, the godfather of psychology, was heavily involved in the inspiration of the scientists that started to go out and to do this. Edward Bernays wrote a lot of books that Hitler also has read. And in these books, it talks to you how you can actually start to program the mind by simple things. Like, it doesn't have to be a scientific experiment.
No, they do it every day.
They do it every day.
Every day with our news and our social media. Like, we're being MK'd Ultra every day. And I think most people think MK Ultra is where you're zip tied to a chair, your eyes are taped open, they're showing you these images, they're torturing you. No, we're being tortured every day just through social media and TV and movies.
It's our entertainment, and it's also our food. Like, I think that they put stuff in our food that make us either more sedated or kill brain cells and cause cancer.
Same with the weed. I just had this talk about when Justin Trudeau legalized weed in his first term, which was 10 years ago. And everyone was like, this is great, blah, blah, blah. And at that time, I wasn't smoking weed. Now it's another situation. We've gone through so much. But the government weed is not the same, compared to if you went to your own dealer. I was just talking to a friend about this like 2 days ago. And for sure, they're messing with it. They're messing with it because it's making people the anxiety, there's something in it. And they do the same thing with our food and our water. So for sure, I totally agree that, we're just being MK'd Ultra through our food, our water, the sky,
right?
Social media, movies, music. I don't know how we get out of this one, folks, but...
Well, I mean, you made a good point too, right? Because it's not only just marijuana; they're starting to kind of open to the public on a everyday recreational use. But it's psilocybin, it's ketamine, it's all these kind of treatments that and what I think is going on is I think they're starting to kind of open up the door of our consciousness a little bit. And so like
Right.
biblically this is like something that God tells us not to get not to get into. It's kind of like when you tell your kid, "Hey, don't touch that electrical outlet." Like they look at the outlet and they're like, "But it's cool, dad, and I'm interested in it." And he's like, "Don't do it because
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
or when someone wants to take a trip to a foreign land, it's like, "Hey man, just be careful, you might bring something back," right?
You know what? It reminds me of, and you see Joe Rogan talking about mushrooms and like psilocybin and, going over and doing like ayahuasca and all this stuff. So it's like this out of body astral projection type of thing. And the astral projection is actually really common in like the not so hippie, but more like Gaia channel, the people who are like believe in the Palladians, like we're talking to aliens and all this stuff.
Mhm.
Um, when you look at astral projection, it makes me think of the movie Insidious. It's a horror movie where a little boy, he astral projects in a night's sleep, and a demon inhabits his body. Or not only that, he gets kidnapped. He gets kidnapped in the dream, and the demons are competing to see who will get his body.
Mm.
Right.
And I wonder if that is kind of what they're trying to do. And like I've heard you talk about the Nephilim, the spirits who cannot die, right? Demons.
Mhm.
Demons are looking for a body, which, you could argue AI, transhumanism is bringing that body for the demons to enter, right?
Right.
We've heard this kind of scenario.
Yeah, exactly. And I think too, like, well, you mentioned the shooter, right? That there was like this duality with what he was writing on his magazines to his weapons, and it's like there's like this coagula and solve, which I like to call it's like the Baphomet, one hand up, one hand down. There's like
Yeah.
this duality, kind of stems back to the Garden of Eden, where it says the tree of knowledge of good and evil. You know, I think what we're looking at, along with the MK Ultra aspect, is we're seeing we're just seeing the influence of these, you know, darkness and powers that are around us that are a part of our reality. We just can't see it. Maybe it's so quantum or maybe it's just so subatomic. We can't explore it
Hmm.
yet. But we have AI being developed, which could be a vessel for a lot of these things. We have drugs on the streets, which are becoming legal and people are starting to use it every day, which, when you look back in ancient Canaanite rituals, they would smoke things and do, and drink and do all these things just to build a stronger connection to with their ancestors or with these, to try and make contact with the seventh kind. It's like this tulpa effect, right? Like there's always some sort of drugs involved. But on the MK Ultra aspect of it too, I think the next step is to develop some sort of piece of technology that is integrated with the human body that now creates this bridge for these things or something like that, right? Like if you remember the movie, I don't know if you've seen it, but Manchurian Candidate with Denzel Washington, right? So
Hmm.
that was an MK Ultra project that he was involved in. He didn't know, he was just out there spilling propaganda to all of the platforms he was using to speak about his story, right? His war stories. But he had a microchip in the back of his head.
Hmm.
And what was connected with that was witchcraft. It was either a verbal saying or some sort of frequency they would send, and that thing would activate, and then all of a sudden he was taken out of the driver's seat, put into the back seat, but what was driving? You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So it's
Right.
it's it's a wild concept. You mentioned food. That makes me think like, heavy metals and all these other things that could be put in, we obviously know other things that have heavy
Yeah.
metals in them. We won't really kind of mention that stuff, get the strike on us.
Well,
Yeah.
not only
But
that, but you're talking about like Bill Gates putting, I'll just put medical medicine into plants and vegetables, so like you can have a salad and get a poke medicine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
what are we doing here?
Well, it's all to calcify the pineal gland, your third eye, right? Like everything that they're doing is they want to destroy that. And I just saw recently that in Toronto, and I'm going to be there in 2 months, so I'm gonna have to do some research. But they're looking to do like an aerosol spray to spray over everybody, Now, what I'm
Right.
hearing that it's actually you go to the hospital and you take it, but at the
Mm.
same time, it's 50-50 where they're like, let's just spray everybody with this aerosol. And again, it's just to calcify your third eye, and I think during COVID, they used that too with the testing strips. Like, why the hell did you need to go all the way up there? What were you, the blood-brain barrier? Like, what were you doing? But you can't talk to the people that just don't understand this because they just were like, trust the science, go along with everything. And, they know things are getting worse, but they don't want to agree to it because then the reality just gets completely shut down with stuff. And amongst our friends, the reality is Greg and I don't trust Trump. I keep saying he's the Antichrist. Musk was the false prophet, and AI was what's the AI?
The beast
Sorry.
system or
The
something.
beast system,
Yeah.
yeah. That's
not a
basically how
bad
we.
little theory there.
Yeah, and Greg and I were just chatting about it and talking about the back of the brain with the chip, and they like to use movies, especially comedy movies, to tell the truth. So Zoolander, remember he was told to kill the Malaysian president? That was all MK Ultra, right? Like they were doing that.
Right.
So they tell it through us from different sources, but they love doing it through comedy because through comedy we just laugh and don't think about it.
Right. And I think they do it through the movies as well, because we initially get that conception of that this is fiction, this isn't real.
Yeah.
That this is your brain automatically just goes, yep, not real. You're looking at a screen.
Yeah.
Which then in reality makes you think of it as a conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
Right. Or predictive programming, when in fact they're literally just setting the seed. So that way, when you see it, you're not as shocked and you're not surprised. And you're like, oh, I've seen this before. It was in that movie. And like, wow, that's, so you're not as like shocked when you see it.
Yeah.
Actually happen.
I find it interesting too that the shooter had orange hair, right? So orange hair being maybe in line with the predictive programming of the most recent movie Weapons. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that movie Weapons. So in the movie Weapons, it's about which is so funny because it throws a Tulpa effect right in the beginning of the movie. I don't know if are you guys familiar with the Tulpa effect?
No,
it's like, so the Tulpa effect is this understanding that ideas become beliefs become manifested. And so in the beginning of the movie, not only does it flash it in the screen so everyone can visually see it, so the brain can pick it up, but it also hits you with the auditory where it says in a small little kid voice, it goes, this movie is based on true events of a town that was, a nice calm town, nothing going on with it. And then all of a sudden, chaos erupted.
Yeah.
And it just builds you up. But in the movie, it's mainly about a classroom of kids, right? Goes missing.
They go missing overnight. Yeah.
They go missing overnight. They get MK Ultra'd actually. And which is my theory behind it, because when you get deeper into the movie, you see that there was a witch that was actually doing this to the people in the town, to where she was absorbing their consciousness and detaching it from their reality.
And she has red hair.
She has red hair, just like that photo.
Well, they were saying, I saw quite a few videos of people calling it orange something. I can't remember what they were saying, but a lot of the people that were talking on camera had orange red hair. So there's something there. There is something there, I'm waiting to see if Mountain Dew comes out with an orange drink, because that's what they usually do, is they do it because they're coming out with a blackout drink, and that's supposed to happen in September. They want everyone to shut everything down. Don't go to work. Don't buy anything. Don't do anything for a week. And
carbon tax shut down.
Carbon tax, exactly. So
jeez,
they love their colors, they love their drinks, and they love to tide it all together.
Well, one thing too. I'm sorry, I don't mean. Go ahead, Greg.
Oh no. I was just going to ask. With this whole AI stuff coming in, I wanted to get your thoughts on this, because one thing that they had lined up and ready to go right after this Catholic school pew was the Gideon project. And that is a Israeli-backed predictive programming measure to preemptively stop crime. It's pre-crime analysis, and it's locked and loaded, ready to go. They use Palantir engineers. They were brought in to run this Gideon project. When you look up Gideon is the name of like this pre-crime analysis in the movie Minority Report. Gideon is also a member, like someone in the Bible who helped Israel defeat, I think, like a group of people. I don't know the names of them, but it is one of those things where you're going, okay, problem, reaction, solution, order out of chaos, like Flex was saying. And they're either piggybacking off of this shooting or they used this shooting purposefully to bring in this pre-crime analysis tool. And when you're looking at like the Dark Enlightenment movement, where you have all of the big tech bros backing Trump, they were all at his inauguration, right? You have like Apple, Google, all of these guys, Elon Musk, heavily funded Trump's campaign. And so you're asking why now is the big tech movement getting involved? And then you see their involvement with hyper surveillance systems, Palantir technology, pre-crime analysis, and then now we're talking about like a digital dollar, and then maybe a biometric ID to stop illegal immigration, right? You get your real ID card here in America. So all of these things are kind of lining up, and I'm noticing a trend of there's a lot of surveillance, digital tracking, and database monitoring. And like in the first couple of days after Trump was inaugurated, he had Project Stargate, where he's literally talking about America owning the largest resource for feeding AI. So
I tell you what's happening, man. I think that we're being pushed into the end zone without being pushed at all, right? Because I think they've learned over time that they can push you a little bit and then stop, and then you kind of get readjusted. Then they push you again, then they stop, then you get readjusted. But I think that we're in such an informational age that they don't want us to know that they exist, and that what they're doing they're doing these things by putting their hands on you, in that whole kind of allegory that I'm talking about. But they want to walk with you and distract you and have a conversation with you, but by the time you know it, you've walked 100 yards into the end zone. And that's kind of like how propaganda actually is set up to be its most successful. And Edward Bernays gets into it in his book, which he's the godfather of propaganda, right? Like Hitler read his book because he was trying to brainwash and to really just grip the consciousness, morality of his military, right? To just so he can actually tell his military, or have his military understand that what they were doing was morally correct, but it wasn't, right? They were like totally demoralized. And I think, with the AI and where it's going, it's all going to be linked to a digital ID. You brought that up. You brought up the digital ID. They're using the chaos of immigration to probably push that. We see that, I forget what country it is exactly. I think it's Mexico and maybe Canada. I can't remember exactly. I don't think it's Canada yet, but maybe somewhere in the
Canada's always the first to get into it.
Yeah, but
All this crap.
there was these, you know how they always kind of write these papers? They
Yeah.
kind of write these scenario papers before it actually like gets,
Yeah.
it actually happens. I read something like that, to where they're pushing a digital ID onto the population because of the immigration crisis. And it's like, maybe this crisis is, all, coming from a source, right? And it's a lockstep source. Maybe what we're seeing right now is something similar to what was going on in 2019. It just doesn't have the impact of the medical facilities, right? But now we're seeing it where it's impacting the borders of all the countries. Everyone's working in lockstep. They're all moving in together, and protocols are starting to get set for the technocratic takeover of this AI system that they really want to take over the world.
See, I don't think they're trying to hide it. I really think they're like, we're doing this and you can't do anything about it, because I feel like they're rolling out so much so quickly. They used to spread out everything. And I find in the last 5 years, including with the new Trump's administration, where I'm like, and Greg, I talk about this every week, being like, I think the deep state or Illuminati, whatever you want to call them, I think they're trying to rebrand. I think they're like, hey, people know about us. We don't care. We're going to do it. Because to people that are awake, it's so obvious, being like, you guys aren't really hiding any of this. Like, literally, you're pushing us into this AI, mark of the beast, the false prophet, the Antichrist. Like, we can really see it. And that's why I think they are leading some people by the hand who still aren't awake. And the rest of us are like, we're doing this because I think they're just psychopaths. They're just like, we don't care that we're just going to do it anyways. Like, I really do.
And honestly, I think the plague of 2020 really woke everybody up. I think that's, Flex, you're saying that's when you found Pardon My American. Everybody was like really focused on the lockdowns. And then it became the mandates, right?
Yeah.
The mandates to take this experiment. And everybody's like, well, why do I have to take it's like one size does not fit all when it comes to medicine. We've known this for years, but everybody had to take this one thing in order to solve this problem. And when you talk to or you listen to certain experts, like epidemiologists, and they're talking about, you never do this. You never apply a random experimental drug during an outbreak because you don't know what the consequences are. Yeah. It could, become immune to that. And so it begged the question, why do they want this substance in everybody's body? And that's what I still don't know. I can speculate all I want. But that is the number one thing where I'm going, it's admittedly, they admit it now that substance does not work for its intended purpose.
Right.
So why did they want it so badly in everybody?
Well, maybe think of it like a social experiment where they're, kind of, if you look into like Universe 25, right, which is like the experiment with all the rats, and they were able to compartmentalize all these rats just by their behaviors into these little social groups. But then the whole point behind it was they knew how to manipulate them. And when I look at that, I look at what took place, because we are a big world. There's a bunch of countries, right? We're all kind of compartmentalized in our nations. But I looked at the bigger picture and I was like, it's so much more simpler than that. Let's just think of it to where like we had to take something in order to partake and to be a part of society. And in order to take this, it affected the family structures. It affected the friends. It affected how people viewed you, right? People didn't even want to be around you. And especially coming from the medical field, I was on the front run ambulance of our fire department, in those years. And I was someone that, held my ground to, my agency. This is my body, and I'm going to, do what I want to it. No one's going to tell me what to do. But, people then started to kind of give me a cold shoulder, a look. If I'd walk into a room, a few people would walk out. This was a social experiment to where they wanted to see actually how many people would give in to their emotions and their feelings rather than think rationally or critically think about, what is the real thing going on here. And right on top of that, we had to also wear something, right? Like over our over our face, in order to get into certain businesses, to eat, to do anything like this, and even to keep your job.
Humanity went full retard, and I think it really surprised me that so many people just went along with it, but they did a great job. Like those that didn't go along with it, we said no to $1 trillion ad campaign, marketing campaign, which that's all it was we're market this, and there were so many things that it was used to destroy families. It was used to greatest transfer of wealth. It destroyed businesses. It bankrupt people. Greg and I just talked about this the other day about the reason why they were wearing masks and having the 6 feet apart is because they were testing the AI to see if they can track people with their faces covered, and you had to be separated. The 5D towers that went up, like they planned this. Probably
not only that, Flex, but like Snapchat, people were willingly putting their face onto a Snapchat filter, seeing if the Snapchat could reinvent your face while you had your mask on. Yeah, and you guys are feeding the algorithm right now.
Yeah. So that's why I think we failed miserably. I think it was a testing ground. It was a lot of things. Like I said, they don't let anything get wasted at all. They're like, oh, we can do this, and that. And, if we make it scary enough, which a lot of people, and I'm not saying COVID wasn't real. I'm just saying it was a very bad case of the flu, but there was no reason to shut the world down. And they knew they could go about 2 years, because after around 24 months, that's when, because they've done experiments where how long they can test people. And that's why I feel like when people say, well, if it wasn't for Trump bringing in warp speed, we would have been locked down longer. And I kind of wish we were locked down longer, because then people would be like, enough is enough. It was just long enough to mess with us, to tell people you got to take this to be involved with society. I remember walking into my gym and one of the guys in there knew I didn't take it because the front staff person probably told him, and he kept away from me like as if I had leprosy or something like that. And I would personally stand right next to him and curl my dumbbells right next to him. I'd be, listen, brother. But,
Yeah. I will say, like, the division, that was the number one thing that I noticed that it worked very well. I mean, it had an effect where your neighbors and your family would reprimand you for not doing what was quote unquote right.
Mhm.
And nothing.
Well, I don't want to cut you off,
Oh,
but
yeah,
that's
go ahead.
biblically too. Like when the Antichrist pushes the mark of the beast, it's in Matthew 24 where all this chaos is going on, but father turns against son, and these people that are of the family structure, they turn on each other, and it says that basically those that don't get the mark, that they take you and they bring you into the councils, and they bring you into the courts, and they turn you in, and
Right.
They had snitch lines. They had snitch lines.
They did.
We just had snitch lines up here in Canada on the East Coast. They were like, you can't go into the forest, you can't hike or fish because we don't want to start forest fires. It's a $25,000 fine. And again, as you were saying before the show started, that Canada's sort of like the blueprint or the,
testing grounds.
Testing grounds. I'm like, you morons are falling for this again. And it was just, again, it was just a test. It was just a test saying you can't do this. We're not going to allow you to do this. And then I think down the road, it's because they want to mine lithium, uranium, stuff like that for the AI. So,
Well, Stephen, let me ask you this, because nothing proved to me more than the plague of 2020 that there is a global cabal. Everybody was hand in hand, working in lockstep. All of the countries united and did the exact same thing. So, and those that didn't, their leaders were promptly removed. They were unalived. So
Right.
I'm saying, like, what do you think the end game is? Do you think that all of the world is in on this new Atlantis / Antichrist system? Do you think that the Bible is this blueprint for the end of the world / the birth of this new technocracy?
Yeah, I do, man. I think it's been pretty right for thousands of years, and there's not just there's not just prophecies of the end of the world, but there's been so many other prophecies before that have been fulfilled, which make me go, okay, maybe I need to pay attention to this last book here, Revelation. But I do think that most of them are in on the same wavelength. They are together, right? When you get into the biblical perspective of it, we don't really wrestle against flesh and blood, but we wrestle against the principalities, the powers of darkness and evil in high places. And so I think that there's a hierarchy system even over the countries and the governors and the governments that we have, even over the corporations and all these things. It's like you turn the dollar bill around and you look at the back of it, there's still that all-seeing eye over everything else. But which I think is the ultimate influence, right? That is behind all of this. Just like that shooter that went into the school, that there was obviously some sort of influence behind that. But I do think that there's a private sector, right? Like if we remember Prince Charles talking in the COP26 during those times of 2022, he talked about, this person, this being, and this thing, marshaling a campaign to usher in the private sector, right? And this being, which I think he was blatantly saying Antichrist in front of the whole entire world. He called it an it, and he actually called it a he, which is funny. I mean, he said that this he had more money than all of the global's GDP combined. So we're talking about, I don't know what he was getting into, but it was kind of really cryptic. But what he's getting to in that speech is this campaign to where they are trying to get the world on the same page, right, in this agenda. But there is this private sector, right, which kind of plays into what you were talking about. There were some people that were taken out of the equation that weren't falling in lockstep with the rest of the world. And so I think that there is, nations out there that still may be independent. They may be very small. They may even rely on government funding, which then they could be influenced to be moved right into this digital ID agenda. I don't know if you guys are familiar with a World Economic Forum Insight report that was printed out in February 2022, but it's called Advancing Digital Agency, the Power of Data Intermediaries. And it gets into this idea of agency. And if you think of it, like Siri at some point has some sort of agency, right? But we have ultimate agency over Siri. But what they're kind of getting into in this report, and it sounds more conspiratorial when I kind of say, because I know what they're saying. They're just wording it in such a, 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 a normal man's way of thinking. But they want to put machines into us so that now the machines have agency over our consciousness. This goes back to the idea of like MK Ultra. Like MK Ultra started out as a little seed, but now it's a big tree, and it's the MK Ultra aspect of it is a global agenda.
Yeah.
Like they want people to take this idea of this mark of the beast to establish like a global hive mind that goes back to a queen, right? Right. The queen, right? The queen uses pheromones, uses other kinds of enzymes and whatever it is out there to control the hive when it needs to. And I think that's what this Antichrist is trying to set up, because he wants to be like God. He wants to be omniscient. He wants to be a part of you, right? And he wants to know everything about you. So if you're not doing something correctly, that hive mind knows. It's like the Eye of Sauron in Lord of the Rings. It's like looking at everyone. It knows the whole world. And when you put that ring on, it knows exactly your location, aka like the ring is the mark. If that makes any sense. But real quick, in this insight report, it talks about machine thinking and human thinking, and it kind of like it gets to the point of where machine thinking is gonna excel faster and better than human thinking, and they're trying to take that humanity part out of the equation. We could even see that today with artificial intelligence starting to merge in with the healthcare programs and facilities. We see that happening with RFK, Dr. Oz, and Trump right now.
Yep.
Well, what's RFK talking about? Talking about wearables. Well, in this insight report, it actually talks about this is like the first step of the digital ID. Like the first step of the digital ID are these wearables.
Right.
And when I take that, because they break this, guys, they break this stuff up into so many pieces that you have to take everything and bring it back together and then try and shape it out. And they do this because it buries and it hides all of the information. It takes a really critically thinking person to go and to find this information.
And general public won't do that. The general public won't even look surface. They won't even research. The most powerful tool in the world for research is right here, and people still won't look up stuff. So I totally agree. I totally agree with that. They're just like break it apart, and then we have people like who go into deep dives like Greg and Donut, and we'll put it together and be like, there it is. But it takes time. People don't have time. They want to just Netflix and chill, sit with their families, which I don't disagree with.
And it is noticing the trends, and it's noticing the trends in both political parties. And that's why they have just two systems, because how dare you make fun of my team? How dare you come after my team? Because then I'm going to be defensive. I'm going to talk bad about you. And so it's like you can't talk anything about Trump without being labeled a libtard with TDS, even if it is a trend of concern, right? Like this whole technocratic state, like the tech bros backing him. That is a major concern. Not to mention his relationship with Israel, but that's a whole nother thing. But like, what had to happen in order to get Trump back in? You had to have Joe Biden come in and wreck the economy, like massive illegal immigration. You have all of these mandates. You have all this bad stuff happening, like the pullout of Afghanistan. you have all of these things where now Trump can come in and save the day, be the Superman. He's even posted, on his X that he is the Superman, right? AI images of him. And it's like when you think about the road to where we are now, it was all laid out perfectly. Because to me, what Trump, and I don't know if you ever got into like the Q movement, but like the conspiracy QAnon stuff, I was heavily involved in that as far as investment and all this stuff. I thought that on Joe Biden's inauguration day, he was going to get arrested. The stage was going to be stormed.
I did too.
We were all going to rejoice with this glory and all this stuff, but no. And so what happened is, I had to take a step back and say, well, like, why did Trump lose? And now they're saying, well, Trump had to lose because you have to go through the dark to get to the light. And I'm like, that sounds like a Freemasonic term to me. And, he's a master chess player, 5D chess. The chess board configuration is very Freemasonic. Mm-hmm. You have all of these Q posts talking about the keystone. The keystone is a significant figure in Freemasonic literature. And, George Washington, a well-known Freemason, had the cornerstone, the keystone, that apparently went missing. I don't know, but so I'm adding all these things up and I'm going, okay, well, order out of chaos is the Freemasonic motto. What are we seeing now with Trump? He is bringing order out of the chaos that was Joe Biden, right? Everybody wants it. They're demanding it. They voted for him, apparently. Yeah. And so that's what you get out of Trump is you get people trusting the government again. And that's exactly what the Q movement was designed to do. And that's exactly what Trump was designed to do. You have to trust the military to take over, right? That's what we're seeing now. 19 different states, the National Guards are being deployed. It will probably be more. And, all these, the people who believe in the Q movement, there might be people arrested. There might be some significant crimes against humanity posted. And that will give them the satisfaction, the throwing the red meat to the movement. And it will give them the ultimate galvanization of Trump is the guy to save us, right? Not Jesus, not anybody else, Trump. Mm-hmm. Right. And that's where you see all of these people equating Trump to Jesus. They're posting pictures of Trump and Jesus, because he was.
It's so Antichrist vibe, dude. I'm so it's so Antichrist.
The Golden Dawn, all that stuff that we've touched base on. And an interesting fact when you said earlier, Stephen, when you were saying that they're using the issue or the chaos of all the immigrants that came in to usher in the AI for the tracking. Well, Trump couldn't win 2020. He had to let Joe Biden's administration win because he couldn't let that happen under his administration. He couldn't let the fall of America happen. And when I look at it now, and trust me, I lost a lot of friends because I was a huge Trump supporter in 2020 and 2021. I look at it now, and Greg and I have talked it many times, being like, it was scripted and set out that you begged for this guy to come back. You voted for him to come back in because they still haven't talked about the election. The assassination and the election and COVID, those are the three things that need to be talked about right now. Not 9/11, not the moon, not if we're a flat earth, none of that, or aliens. It's just the three most prevalent things that I feel that need to be talked about are those three things. But they had to let Biden come in, bring all that in and say, well, because of Biden, we have to use all this Palantir and all this AI to track people. Yep. And it's brilliant. Listen, they're psychopaths, but they're very smart psychopaths. They're very patient. That's why I'm wondering why they're pushing everything so hard, because they've always been very patient to spread everything out.
Right.
And I'm just why
2030?
Yeah,
there's something about 2030, and Stephen, that was a question that I wanted to ask. Is what do you think is valuable about 2030? Do you think that they're trying to bring in this new religion, this new God, maybe with this transhumanism?
I think so, man. It's when we think of this whole concept of the Antichrist and how the world is, changed and manipulated through chaos, and then there's a savior, and there's chaos, and there's a savior. It goes back to the occult, it goes back to the Freemasons, it goes back to their traditions. With the Freemasonry tradition, they believe in the Bible. They just believe in it in a Gnostic view, right? They believe that Lucifer was the good guy, and they think that God was the bad God that pretty much was restricting us from, being as gods. And so if you look in the garden, right, just the simple story of the garden, before Eve was beguiled or deceived, which, when you actually are deceived, you don't even know what you're doing is a deception. You don't even know the act that you've fallen into, it was done under your own will, but was, manipulated by someone else's, right? So what I'm saying with that is, there was duality in the garden. And that duality is like the left bumper and the right bumper of the bowling alley, where you hit one side, you go to the other, you hit the other side, you hit the other, but they want to corral you to get to a certain area to fulfill their agenda. If that makes any sense. Because we overpopulate them 99% to 1, right? It's like in that movie Bug's Life where, the hornet is, takes one seed out, he throws it out and he hits the other hornet and he's like, oh yeah, I didn't feel that. And the guy's like, oh yeah, here's another one. Throws one seed at him. I didn't feel that either. Huh, that's hilarious. But then he rips the whole thing off the wall and the whole just, corral of seeds just falls and crushes and kills all of them. And then he stands up and he's like, basically allegory for, hey, they can take us down at any moment, any time. But the 2030 thing, man, I think it's interesting. The World Economic Forum talks about that 2030, you'll own nothing and be happy. Well, what's that mean? Because that doesn't just mean property, which we could see it in the best view right now
Means
of what they're
everything.
talking about pertaining to property. Because I mean, the guys that I work with, the young guys, the 21-year-olds, the 22-year-olds, the 25-year-olds, they can't buy a house, man.
No.
Like their rent is $2,000. Like they can't get out of the hole. It's impossible, and if we're talking about that, I this is what led me to down a bunch of research, man, where that insight report I was talking about earlier led me to a rabbit hole that is very dark and scary. That insight report talks about the digital ID. It talks about the digital ID starting out with your phone, reading your biometrics. Then it talks about it becoming a wearable. Then it talks about technology being embedded in the body. Then I was like, oh my goodness, technology embedded in the body. Let me go research some technology because I used to work in, clinical research and working on medicines and all that kind of stuff. I didn't particularly work on medicines, but I was in the lab doing all the paramedic stuff. But I came across that patent, by Microsoft in 2019 of, I think it was September or June. I can't remember, but it came out in 2019. Funny how in October, we had all that propaganda distract us from all that research. Then in 2020 in March, no one really knew, no one really cared about that. All they cared about was their shows, TV programs, and video games and social media. But I came across another patent where it's that Microsoft patent 060606. There's a
Right.
20 in front of that. But it talks about a sensor that works with a device that picks up and records and analyzes body activity data, but then mines cryptocurrency to the user. And I'm like, this sounds Mark of the Beast all over. Like it sounds, first of all, the number in it is like 666. And then there's a sensor. It doesn't say it's in the body, but then that other insight report, I'm taking that and connecting it with this, and I'm going, digital ID inside the body now records, analyzes body activity data, which we seen that coming from the wearables that RFK is talking about, sensing blood pressure, heart rate, brain waves, all this kind of stuff by a wearable device. They're even saying it could pick up, early stages of cancer. The
Right.
medical field's wrapped around this idea too, because you have to look at the symbolism of it, right? Like the symbolism on the back of the ambulance at my job is a 6-pointed star with a staff and a snake wrapped around it.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, serpent wrapped around a stake, a stake like it was wrapped around the tree. Who knows, right? But I was like, okay, that patent says it can make and mine cryptocurrency. So if we own nothing and be happy by 2030, are we all going to get some sort of like, universal income to where we don't have to worry about owning anything? Everything now becomes, an asset. Every asset that we have becomes a token on the blockchain. It's kind
Right.
of like, where have we heard that before? We've heard, Larry Fink talk about that, the guy who owns BlackRock and Vanguard and all the main corporations and businesses in the entire Wall Street, you know, um, mafia, pretty much. But then I was like, what is tokenization? Like, think of it as like a food stamp. You don't own it, but it allows you to get things.
Right.
And they
If
can take it away from you.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, what do you guys think? I mean, 2030, I think it could be this technocratic, totalitarian style government. Doesn't look
Mhm.
like one government yet. Maybe it will if the aliens come. But you know what I'm saying? Like, who knows if,
Right.
because we've got all this propaganda building up with, Atlas coming. There's aliens are coming. Ronald Reagan back in the day in front of the United Nations said this would be the only way that a world government would be established, as is because all of us would view that we all had, an opposition and we would come together.
Yep.
Project Bluebeam, all this stuff, man. I mean,
Yeah, I think with the mark of the beast system that you were just talking about, like a something implanted in your skin that can receive a Bitcoin. With that, I mean, you have that universal basic income aspect, and you also might have a carbon tax tied to that.
yeah.
And someone who is really open to those two proponents is Elon Musk. And so you have to ask yourself, why is Donald Trump associating himself with Elon Musk, bringing him in to run a Doge government system when he openly admitted that he's into carbon taxes? He wants to colonize Mars, which is like, okay, whatever. But then also, he wants a carbon tax and a universal basic income. And he loves AI. He wants AI to, his robots, the Tesla robots,
He's a
the
robot.
humanoids.
I
Yeah,
think he has a Neuralink.
He is
I
a robot.
promise you. I think he's Neuralinked.
I think they're going to come up with some way of giving a universal income, get rid of income tax, but the only way you get rid of the income tax is you have to get this. And you'll
well, they're
see
going to
how,
have a carbon tax, though.
yeah,
That is
yes.
coming.
So that will be like their credit score, but they're going to get rid of the income tax, and they're going to be like, but the only way to do it is everything's digital. I'll tell you right now, I bet you anyone watching the show will be like, I'm getting taxed to death. I'll take that deal, because they're putting their foot on our throats so badly that up here in Canada, they just did a survey where, almost 50% of
Right.
our income is taxed, and we're being squeezed, but it's just a dangle.
Right.
And I
And you know
won't
what?
listen, guys, I might sell my soul and be like, I don't want to pay any taxes. I'll take it. But,
Well, hey, hopefully you don't. But
Well-
you know what I could see? I could see, because there's talk of cyber attacks happening all the time. And I think that there will be a big one coming that wipes everything out. And
I agree.
when you come back in, you have to have that surveillance, right? Like, you can blame it on cyber attackers and be like, hey, we're adding this layer of Palantir protection, so that way we can monitor and track where they came from before it, happens again. But I also think that it's going to impact financial systems.
oh, for sure.
I think that they can use a cyber attack to crash the market. They can use that to crash the U.S. economy, the dollar. And what do you need to? You need to replace that with something, right? So you come in with this digital dollar. Maybe you have a chip thing already made up. You have all of this designed in the background. So you have all of that AI infrastructure, which Project Stargate is building right now. It's not just AI, it's to run the digital currency.
Yeah.
And that's why Donald Trump wants it here, because he wants America, the new Atlantis, to be in charge of the bank.
Do you
Yeah,
think
no,
that's
I
why
agree.
he's still fighting hard against the BRICS nations? Because they want to not go digital. They
Well,
want to go
I think-
gold.
I think what's going on with that, it could be a bunch of different things to what they're going to be fighting about. But like biblically, when I see that, I see it in Matthew 24 when it reads, like nation rises against nation. So I think where they're all trying to, there's like competition, right? And so they're all trying to one up each other to be the guy that lifts the most weight. And that in a way is like these nations rising against nation. And I
Mhm.
think it's only creating competition to push us closer and further down the line to get there quicker. If that makes sense. It's
Mhm.
like technology, advanced technology, if that makes sense, right?
Mhm.
Like And the more advanced technology got, the faster technology grew. And that's just kind of like where we're at. I wanted to touch on something. You mentioned the carbon tax. Because I love this. I love that you guys are bringing this up because this is like my bread and butter. This is something I really dedicate all my work to, is all of this kind of stuff, and I go on shows to try and give my perspective of a lot of it. But the carbon tax, well, what is carbon? Carbon is, it's a dying molecule. It's death. Like when in my part of the field in the medical side, we breathe out carbon dioxide. We're a carbon life form because I believe we have the curse of death. I don't think it's necessarily how we were originally created, but I think that it's now just a part of life that we've all got to live through. It's part of our design ever since the beginning. But carbon has 6 protons, 6 neutrons, 6 electrons, right? It could be something to where let's say they go all electric vehicle, they take all the carbon away from the farming, from everything, right? All of the other aspects of life that develop carbon, but now we're the only carbon life form left. So now they need to monitor us, and that could be like that thrown in there with that body activity data, right? But well, what's going to like push this digital ID idea, and it might just be something like a wearable at first, right? Like I think putting something inside the body, they're going to get a lot of pushback from that. But if they just condition the generations as they come through, I think it'll be easier to normalize, putting something in the body once it's already been worn on the body since birth, if that makes any sense. But you mentioned cyber attacks, and it makes me think of cyber Polygon, right? Like cyber
Right.
Polygon being that scenario based, insight report where they were talking about DDoS, scenarios. They were talking about identification hacking and all this, where I noticed it getting closer to that kind of idea when I called my bank. This had to be a couple months ago, and it said, "Do you want to use voice recognition to get into your account?" And I was like, I just hung up the phone, dude. I was like,
No,
I didn't
thank
even
you.
want to say one word. I didn't
Yeah.
even know if it was going to record that or what. It just said, "Do you want to activate voice recognition to get in your account?" And I hung the phone up. And I was like, nope, I'm just going to go into the bank and do this, face to face.
Right.
But I think that it could get to a point to where this is what's going to push that digital ID system.
Yep.
And if they can get everyone to at first wear wearables to where it's locked into some sort of I know that the veins in your right hand actually are very significant to your signature,
Mm,
right? Which is interesting too. But I think the end goal is either quantum dot technology or graphene quantum dot technology. I don't know if you
right.
guys are familiar with in 2017, but the MIT was doing quantum dot technology to hold V records, right? And it would
Right.
glow with luciferase, and it would glow
Yep.
with all this used with UV light and all that. Well, quantum dot technology actually is very similar in the same way, but it attaches to the molecular biostructure of your cells and everything in your body. And when you want to get it to send you a signature, like if you ask it like its heart rate, "Hey, what's my heart
Hmm.
rate?" And it just boop, it sends out like a light code because it's like within the light spectrum, because these things are so nano in size that when they get excited by light, which the light from our phones actually work with it. I've seen that in a patent, which is crazy.
Oh boy.
But you can just put your phone up to your arm or wherever the site is, right? Where everything goes back and shoots you an image, and it's got this light signature to it to where then it tells you, okay, yeah, your blood glucose is 97. Good. Maybe a green thumbs up, make you feel good or something. I don't know, man. I think the cyber attack thing is what's going to put us into that world event that kind of happened similarly in 2019. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. People will be begging for a solution. And if you have a solution that is a digital ID, then they're going to go for it. I mean, and just like Flex was saying, if you're going to get rid of my taxes and possibly all my debt is wiped,
Whew.
yeah, give it to me.
I know.
Give me my Nassara Jassara check. I'm in.
Right.
I joke all the time about that.
Right. I mean, it's like the constant good cop, bad cop that we face with politics, you know? I mean, you mentioned it too, right? With Biden and then Trump. I mean, I'm not even gonna lie. Like, I was a Trumper in his first term, but then I woke up by just doing a bunch of research. I saw the Israeli ties with him. It started to wake me up a little bit.
Mhm.
Started to see more symbolism, you know.
He's not really hiding it. It's kind of like I keep saying he's a different guy. I always listen. Greg and I always joke about they swap out everybody, you know. And I know he's older. I just don't see him as the same guy. I don't know what's happened to him. But I think his first term was to be like this stone cold, you know, F you to the authority. You know, everyone was like, I like this guy, even though he's a billionaire. He's putting, you know, us first and stuff like that. But I just, after this term, I'm
Right.
just sitting there going like, sorry.
I think the first term of Trump was the romance phase, where he
Yes.
says the things that you should be saying as, you know, you're running for president. You're saying, hey, our economy is a bubble. Taxes have loopholes. I know because I take advantage of them. I'm a billionaire, millionaire, whatever. So he's saying all of these things and he's being honest. And then he's saying, you know, if you know, going after Hillary Clinton, all this stuff, like the crime families and all this stuff. And then he doesn't do that. And then he starts kind of building the economy during his first. So you're romanticizing Trump with a great economy, a good time, and America first. And that's the idea, is that the propaganda gets stuck in everybody's head and they don't see the workings in the background.
Sorry, guys. Give me 1 second. Someone's at my door.
Oh
Hold
yeah,
on.
you're good,
Okay.
buddy. No worries. You're good. Take care of it. Hopefully, I don't hear gunshots in the background.
Right. You might hear
Well,
his cat. He just got a cat.
oh, really? Nice, nice. You know, I
Yeah.
used to have a blue lightsaber next to me, but it started
heck
making
yeah.
this like whining noise, and I was like, I don't know if that's EMF or what. So I was like, we'll just put the Bigfoot sign
Right.
back up. Why not?
But yeah, so you were talking about like the in I don't know if it's like inside the body type of technology, right? So Flex, we were just talking about inside the body technology. And so I'm thinking
Okay.
about, what if that was what the 2020 solution was? It's, let's practice, let's get this inside of people's bodies and see what it does.
For sure.
Right?
For sure.
Well, like, yeah, like break, like fracture the minds of society with something, but then also offer them a solution where it's a medically pushed idea, and then people would just, you know, they just lean their shoulders out for you. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like, hey,
Yeah.
dude, I need to work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and if you think about that from like a biblical aspect, it's like so material. Like, I don't want to die. I'm so willing to give up everything,
Hey.
even my children. Like,
They may not have med beds, but there maybe a med pill, and you take this pill, and it can monitor everything. It can detect cancer.
That actually exists, man. That actually exists. I even think the guy who runs Pfizer actually talked about that. You know,
Oh.
to where yeah, you take this thing, and it just, you know, it absorbs into your body. At some point you pass it out, obviously, but it goes through your system and pulls all this data, you know, for your doctor to read, like, on the spot. It's kind of like
Wow.
how they do with the heart monitors now, you know, where
Right.
they put these little heart monitors on,
If-
and they can see exactly what's going on in real time.
Like if 2020 hadn't happened and we didn't go through this, because I think there's a lot of people now that don't trust the medical field, unfortunately, in pharmaceuticals. Before that, I think people would have jumped on board being like, yeah, this is great. Like, you go for a colonoscopy, you go for, you know, your checkup and blood work. But I think after 2020, I think 50% of the population now would be like, I think it was 80-20 or 90-10, 90 being people that fell for it. I think there's a lot of people that did take the, you know what, and been like, I haven't been well since, I don't trust this. There'll still be some morons that will take it, but
Right.
I really do feel that, I just feel like that would be something that if they had come out with it before 2020, people would have jumped on board with it.
Yeah.
Well,
So
that's
yeah, go ahead.
That's what's interesting about the Maha movement, Make America Healthy Again. And you have RFK Jr. at the head of that now. And he's the one kind of turncoating He used to be against the pokey medicine. Now he's kind of for it, and not only that, but he wants you to have a wearable. So I don't know. I don't know. What
You know
he
what's
was-
crazy too? He's actually pushing methylene blue, right? Which is so
Right.
funny, right? When you actually measure the frequency of light that emits off of blue, it actually falls within a range, right? That range is, I think it's like 620 something or 18 and something like that, or 18 to 690 something, which technically 666 falls into that frequency range, right? So he's actually, in a way, promoting for people to take something that would have a value to it, like a certain number behind
Right.
it. I don't know.
Right.
I'm a conspiracy guy, so I'm like,
No,
that's
we're not conspiracy people. We're spoiler alerters. That's what our name
I
Yeah.
like
is.
that. I like
We're
that.
spoiler alerters.
I've stopped using theorists at the end of it. I'm like,
Yeah,
nah,
I'm a theory. It's no
that's dumb.
theory on any of this.
Yeah. And it's funny, man, because we're talking about some crazy times, man. Like the whole the not trans, but the whole transhumanist movement, right? With Peter Thiel, he's obviously been talking about things through a Christian lens now for some reason. I don't think he's a Christian in any way. He's actually doing like a full 5-part breakdown of the Antichrist, because he's doing a lot of damage control from him going on interviews and actually being, the light will always shine on the dark, in my
Yeah.
opinion. People will always, there will be a revealing to where they actually sit behind things. And, Palantir, I think, is going to play a big part, like this idea of like eagle eye, right? Like, I don't know if you guys remember the movie Eagle Eye with Shia LaBeouf. It's like what it's going to be. And I mean, what really, really freaks me out, right, is like, let's say, they advertise something and they promote something that, hey, you can make money off this thing, man, just put it inside your body. But are you putting Siri in your body? Like, are you putting Siri in your body where now you think you have your agency, which actually that Insight report kind of starts to talk about that. That's why it says agency in the title. Like machine thinking versus human thinking, and when can they flip a switch to put you in the back seat, right? When can they MK Ultra the whole world, like with a snap of a finger?
Well,
Like,
know,
they
it's
made some
funny.
movies. What was that cell phone movie with, I think, what's his name, Cusack or something? It was the cell phone movie. Like, everyone answered their cell phones, and they all like flipped a switch inside of them, and all of a sudden,
That was, I know what you're talking about.
I think it was called Cell or something. Or
There was like a there was another one where Samuel L. Jackson was the bad guy, and he gave everybody free government phones, and then he turned on this signal, and then he made everybody destroy each other.
What was that movie?
And that was like a kind of like a James Bond-esque type of thing, but
I mean, that's how they maybe tied in with the 5G towers and everyone that took this, but I also heard that the 5G towers can heal people as well. Like my prediction, talking about health and all that, is I think Trump will be out in 6 to 8 months with a health issue, and JD Vance will take over, and that's how Palantir and JD Vance take over. I think they keep talking about Trump's health issues, his hand, with the intravenous and all the heart issues that he has. So I think in 6 to 8 months, something will happen, and they'll switch him out with JD.
But I mean, going back to that movie idea, though, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Upgrade.
Yep.
It came out, I don't know, 2021, maybe even like 2017. This was like an older movie, but paraplegic. He couldn't move his arms, couldn't move his legs. They offered to put a chip into his head, and he could walk again. But apparently, this chip comes with a voice, and this voice talks to the guy 24/7, right? And when he gets in trouble, like a physical altercation, it asks for permission to take over his body. And when he allows it, yes, so he allows it to, he says, yes, you can. And then he's able to fight like a superhero. And now there's that aspect of will. You have to invite it in. And that's what I'm trying to like explore here, because vampires, you have to invite the evil in, just like Trump saying, the snake, you invited the snake in. You knew what I was before you let me in, and you still invited me. Just like this voice in the back of the head, like you knew what it would do to you. You said, yes, take over my body, and it did.
Right. And I think, man, think what we're dealing with, and again, like my views might be, different, but I think we're dealing with Nephilim disembodied spirits. These are demons, that crave human flesh, right? Like they are craving to be in a body again, right? Because what they did in the antediluvian epoch, right? What was going on before the flood, which we can see all of the pantheons that still carried over after the flood, that there were these gods here, this idea of these things that were here ruling this world in a way. And,
I'm
so I
I'm getting
think,
some heavy feedback here. I don't know if I'm hearing. It's almost like
um,
somebody in a kitchen or something.
yeah.
Oh, you hearing that? Hey, could you close the door, guys?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. You're
I
good.
think
I don't know how you heard that.
you
Thank
start
you.
hearing about spirits, and I'm like, I can hear
Hey,
spirits right now.
well, I'll
Thank
tell
you.
you what, I've had some very interesting things go down on this platform, and again, it could just be me, speculating in a crazy way. But when I start kind of talking about this stuff, weird stuff does happen. Anyways.
Dude,
But
we had Brian from Demon Erasers
love
on our
that guy. I love
podcast.
Brian. Yeah.
And while he was like, Flex was making fun of like the cross or like some garlic or something, and we were like having a fun like laugh about demons. Literally the first time ever, the whole broadcast just like their cameras shut off, they came back on, and their mics were all just like distorted for about 20 to 30 minutes.
Yeah, actually, we tried to get on to do, because I don't know if you caught the monologue that I posted today, but I recorded that last night. But me and Jesse were trying to get on and record this, and we could not get into the studio. It was actually one of the first times this has ever happened. But I was, pretty much in that monologue. I'm talking about that, talking about demons, Nephilim spirits. I'm exposing, possible, my speculation of the shooter and what he was going through. But I think what they're trying to do with this new Atlantis is they're also trying to bring in the old religion that was before the flood. And in that old religion, you had these fallen angels, you had their offsprings, which their lineage was now an immortal like line of an immortal bloodline. Because when you think of it, just before that, Adam and Eve were cursed with death. And, there was like a de-evolution process. When you look at the ages in the Bible, it's like this start outs at like 900 and something, but then goes down. But then in the Genesis 6, you know, scene where the fallen angels kind of started their own bloodline, then God cursed their bloodlines or just the cursed man that their days would be up to 120 years. It's like he had to come in there with that counter chess move because now this bloodline, this Nephilim bloodline, is immortal in some sort of way. I think that's where we get the pantheon of gods today, right? That's passed down through all different cultures and traditions, and it's all the same story, just rewritten, right, through a different lens. But I think that idea of Atlantis, they want to bring that old world back. You know what I'm saying? Which the transhumanist agenda, which will probably give us eternal life at some point and maybe make us that immortal bloodline, but it comes with a cost. Like everything
Yes.
comes with a cost. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And what if that's, that Siri that plays in your mind and wants to take the front seat and drive a little bit once in a while.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I can help you through this situation. You sure you don't want me?
God.
But like,
It's like a gin.
yeah,
It's like a
But
gin back in the Latin
exactly.
Latin
I
days.
get pissed off when I have an earworm song playing in my head over and over again while I'm lying in bed, because I'm editing and sometimes I have a track playing, and every time I go back over it for 8 hours, I'm hearing the same song. So I couldn't imagine someone speaking to me over and over again.
Well, it's
in my-
interesting though. So Trump always talks about the golden age, and he's making the golden age is coming back, the return of the golden age. And if you look up the ages of man, it's like these 4 or 5 ages. I think there's the golden age, silver age, bronze age, and then there's something in between there. But in the golden age, the ruler is Saturn. So the god of the golden age is Saturn. And if you look at like Grok's logo, it literally looks like Saturn. There's a bunch of symbolism with Donald Trump and Saturn. And
yes.
You know what I mean? And you look at like the black cube religions and the black cube of Saturn, and like, where does the black cube come
Well,
from?
you just made me think too of the Abraham Accords coin. You flip it over onto the back, which the front has, the Israeli flag and the Islamic flag, and the nations coming together and making a peace deal, which the Antichrist will do, by the way. And then you flip it over, and on the back, there's a scimitar sword. That's a curved sword, right? It looks like an Arabian sword, if that makes any sense. And it's actually, the Shriners actually use it for their emblem as well, with also a pentagram with 5 little parts colored in on it. But anyways, in this scimitar sword, it has all these symbols. The first symbol looks like a digital grid. The second symbol looks like I forget exactly, but after that there's binary code, and then after that there's satellites, and then after that there's
like the dove of peace or something, right?
dove of peace, and then there's actually like a looks like a needle, right? A needle as well is on there, and then after that at the tippy top there's a what looks like a UFO, but it can also look exactly like Saturn.
Exactly. Yeah. I've done deep analysis of this. It's one of those things where he always comes back to Saturn. And I was researching the Golden Age, and there's a theory that those who died in the Golden Age, because it was like this glorious time, right? Like if you think of the Garden of Eden, that would be equivalent to the Golden Age, where everybody is all this stuff. So Saturn ate his own children because he was there was this theory or like a prophecy that his children would come to murder him, and so he ate them, and that's where you see the famous picture. It's like a painting of Saturn literally eating the head.
Same thing as Kronos.
Correct.
Yes.
God of time, right?
Yep.
And when you died in the Golden Age, you became a daemon. Daemon, something like this, where you'd live forever as a spirit. And now I'm just thinking, that sounds like a demon living
well, that's
forever.
where we get the English word from. That's the Greek word is called daemonion, and then it goes into the Latin, which is daemon, and then from daemon we get demon. At least through like the etymology of it. That's what I remember.
Right. But supposedly they're supposed to be good daemons. Like they're supposed to be like a good source of like, hey, they're protectors and all this stuff. But I'm just thinking, Trump wants to take us into the Golden Age where people died and they became demons. I don't know if I want to go there.
No, it's some wild connections, man. I mean, oh man, it's like it's and shout out to all my Trumpers out there in the audience, by the way. I'm sure you guys are gonna love this show.
Oh,
but
yes.
but this is the thing, man, because we need to wake people up to a lot of what we're seeing on the cover of this book, man. Because I think that's what we're really good at doing is we look at the cover of the book and we can get a good context of what's inside of it. People are just, I don't know, it just goes over their head today, man.
Right. What's that tribalism?
Well, and they're not using discernment, and they made him powerful. They made him powerful with his first term and the assassination attempt. By the hand of God, he was saved. And, in the last 4 years, it was so bad with Biden and the administration that everybody was like, yes, please, we'll take him, but I think what's upsetting to me is we can point out stuff. I hate saying left and right, but in this case, I will. Stuff the left side is doing. And people are like, yeah, that's not right. Yeah, they're doing this. And then we're like, but the right side's now doing it with Trump there. And they refuse to see it. And I'm like, they've put this guy on a pedestal that now it really has become the far right. Like the far right has, in my opinion, become MAGA, unfortunately. Because I've had friends of mine and they don't watch the show anymore, and they don't follow me on Instagram anymore. And I don't post political stuff on Instagram. We'd always post positive stuff. And I'm like, yeah, as soon as Greg and I started just saying, hey, let's open your eyes a little bit, use some discernment, people in our group decided to be like, forget it, and I'm just like, I like to know what they're thinking now about all this, but personally, I don't care, because it's just like you have to open your eyes and use your discernment and live your life. Like, you got to
Right.
live your life. You got to live. Greg and I always end every show with something positive other than woe is me, the world is coming to an end. But you got to live your life, and if your life
Right.
is putting this guy or anybody on a pedestal, that goes with athletes, movie stars, musicians, and politicians are the same. You're setting yourself up for failure.
Oh yeah. Yeah, man. And it's I think how they're gonna, that was a great point you made with the positive message, because I try to do that as well at the end of each show, because sometimes it gets dark, man, because we're
Very dark.
talking about some serious stuff here, right? The normal man, I feel like, would not really be able to compute half of the things we've gotten into tonight,
No.
but it's important that to at least get it out there and just, plant some seeds when we can. And, some will grow, some won't, but hopefully it'll lead to a nonviolent revolution or something like that. I don't know. But,
Right.
when you were talking about the golden age, looking at it from an occult practice, right? In alchemy, we're talking about lead being turned into gold. And so I don't think we're in the gold yet, but we're in that process, that transition process, that transition process, that chemical breakdown. Things are like changing from its elements, right?
Right.
And I
I
think
don't
it's
I
going
don't
to
want
take
to
something bad to really turn it into gold. But I think we're heading
right.
that way. Yeah.
I don't want to throw you off course. Sorry. I don't
No, you're
didn't
good.
want to interrupt. But like, did you see there was a recent article coming from CERN where they turned lead into gold?
Yes. So, well, look at that, right? Like, look at what is CERN's uh main goal, right? We don't really know. We could speculate on it, but they just did an alchemical process, which is like magic, dude.
Hmm.
It's magic, man. But we call it science today. Don't get it twisted. Magic back in the day, occultism back in the day was witchcraft, sorcery, and all these
Right.
things. And
Pharmakia.
pharmakia, right? And so now in our days, it's just the scientists and the these very smart people, right, that are messing around with the makeup of this realm. And it makes me think of what's outside, right? What's outside of CERN is Shiva.
Hmm.
Shiva having one hand up, one hand down, right? There's a duality there. It's a coagula and solve. Like coagula, meaning like solid, and solve meaning it's dissolved, right? And it's this constant process that has to take place. It's destruction, but then out of destruction comes this new world.
Right.
It's
It's
like
the Phoenix.
Shiva, right?
Right.
It's the
Yep.
Phoenix, conspiracy. The Phoenix being, on the meditation or on the wall. There's this mural, right, on the wall in this meditation room in the United Nations that has a phoenix sitting in the middle of the table, right, with its dead skin like shedded underneath its feet. It's the symbolism of also America with the eagle. Who knows exactly if it's an eagle or a phoenix? Some
Mm,
people speculate on that and they debate about it. Manly P. Hall even mentions that it's a phoenix. So
right.
it's all wild stuff, man. I guess so. So we'll conclude all of this with one last topic, if you guys don't mind.
Sure.
But the alien stuff. Where does all this, when with everything we kind of discussed today, I think, which we discussed a lot and a good amount, right? I'd say about half of everything that's kind of playing out, half of a half. But with the alien stuff, Flex, what's your conclusions with what's going on in this narrative?
Well, they haven't gotten here in enough time. Like, they need to be here now. Just please take us away, like, just end this stuff. I think Greg and I have talked a lot about how we feel, you know, um, they're always telling us to look up, but I think the aliens probably are most likely in the oceans, amongst us here. And, I don't know if it's an asteroid. They're not saying it's an asteroid, but they're saying something is coming towards us. And I think they moved it up by a month, and they're saying it's like an alien ship or something like this. Honestly, because I want to leave I want to leave this on a high note. Please take us away. You know, you know, either do
Right.
something to the bad guys or take us away, and let's. Look. I'm willing to do anything with them. I'll train them. I'll edit their videos for them. Whatever. you know. But they're here. They are here, and I think they're here on Earth already.
Like, you think they look like us?
Oh, well, I'm not sure about when we talk about basically like lizard people, I've never got deep into any of that, but it wouldn't surprise me. It really wouldn't surprise me. But I think they're amongst us. I think they're amongst us. I think the bad ones might be the ones playing the role of everything that we're seeing, all these people, because you can't be human and be that psychopathic. I have to think that there has to be a demon of some type in them, or an alien invasion of some type of body snatcher, because I just don't understand why humans can be that psychopathic. They're very few against the larger base of us. So I think they're psychopaths dressed up, year round. It's not Halloween. It's Halloween for them year round, it seems.
It's like real life Men in Black.
Yeah.
Piece.
Well, I mean, like, again, where do they come up with these movies? They're telling us ahead of time. And I think that would be the most difficult thing for people to acknowledge, that there's aliens among us. But when they started talking about aliens in the last bit, and they finally came out and said it, I don't think the response was anywhere close to, oh my God, what's going on? It's all, I think that's why they're going to use the Blue Beam, Project Blue Beam. And those that just are not awake to any of this, or just can't see past their own hand, will freak out. And I'm okay with that. Freak them out. Let those people huddle back into their homes and let us live amongst the aliens and be tax-free and healthy and whatever. With my Nasara check. That's all I care about.
What about
Pay
you,
me.
Greg?
Yeah, so like with the aliens, I do think maybe a Project Bluebeam is in check there, and maybe they would use that as a, hey, you have to inject this ID into yourself so that way we know you're human and not an alien. Maybe, but honestly, I think going back to Timothy Alberino, I don't know if you're familiar with his work.
Oh, yeah.
So I listened to a show several years ago, and what he said kind of stuck with me, and I think this might be where it's going, where you have this kind of Venn diagram of this overlap where you have transhumanism, aliens, and a new religion. And now I think that you'll have these aliens come back, and it might be the Elohim returning, and it, might be, I don't know. But these aliens will have these powers that they can give to man. And when you think about like technology and how our technology has just boomed in the last, 50 years, like, where has this technology come from? There's been speculation that we are, trading with aliens. Some say we're trading with human lives for this technology. So you'll have these Elohim fallen angels. They'll return. People will look up to them. They will glorify them. They'll have these like superhuman powers, which could explain why there's, all of these superhero movies where they're like glorifying superheroes and these supernatural strengths and stuff. You can have those powers through transhumanism. So they will allow you to absorb these powers and maybe have upgrades. Like if you follow a social credit score system and say, hey, your carbon tax is low. Do you want to upgrade and get this next power? I mean, you're eligible. So I think that might be where we go. And even like longevity, they'll offer you like long life, maybe even eternal life. It was Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, who said he believes that his group of his age group will be either the last people to die or the first to live forever. And I'm like, what? I don't really understand. Right.
What does he know?
Like, how does that come up in a conversation?
Yeah.
Like,
what do you know, bro?
Exactly. And so when you're thinking about aliens returning or like Elohim returning, aliens coming down, then you get the question of, will this turn into a new religion? And that's where I think the Vatican gets involved. They have the telescope that they work, I think, with the University of Arizona called the Lucifer. I think shortened to Lucy.
Right, the Lucifer device.
Right. And so you're thinking, I think the Vatican knows about either fallen angels or aliens and knows that there is going to be a turning point. It's going to be an effort to remove Christianity from the world stage, remove all religions from the world stage, have one world religion, and it will be when the gods walk among men, again, it's like the Elohim, right? They're returning. And what's interesting is if you look into the Raelian religion, it's like a UFO sex cult. So Rael, and it's weird because it's literally like Israel. It's the Rael from Israel. So
Right.
Rael is this French man who was walking in the desert and encountered aliens. They said, come back in 7 days with a Bible and we'll tell you everything you need to know about it. He came back. He went up to the Raelians took him up to somewhere, this like other planet where there were clones of everybody, even including himself. And he had sexual relations with multiple clones of women. He was given all of this knowledge and then sent back down to Earth. And then he started his own sex cult. Now, what he believes is that the aliens need an embassy. And if you go to their homepage, that's like their number one goal is they need to build a building, like an embassy for the aliens to land at. And that needs to be their home base. And they've gone to numerous governments around the world trying to get the backing to build this new embassy. And when you look, the number one thing that they're trying to do is get Israel involved and call it the Third Temple.
Yeah.
And they're saying, we can build our embassy and you can use it as your third temple. And when you're seeing all this stuff in the news about the red heifer sacrifice, which they would do right before the rebuilding of the third temple, you're seeing the Al-Aqsa Mosque getting trashed. You're seeing a bunch of Middle East problems, right? Gaza is just being destroyed. Palestinians are being destroyed. So now you're saying, okay, well, what happens to the mosque? Is the mosque going to be destroyed and then allow for this third temple to be rebuilt? And not only that, but the Raelians think that the aliens will come by 2030. And so I'm thinking that's the connection for me is that's when the aliens will come. That's when the new religion will begin. That's when this third temple will be rebuilt, or it will be rebuilt before then. And I think that that's the whole thing. I think the Raelian religion might become one of the new religions.
Yeah, and I think what they're doing too is they're branching off a lot of different, uh, a bunch of different religions. The New Age movement is a part of it. You know, the Anunnaki movement. There's all these other like, movements that get into the same general idea. And just to tie a little bit in, like biblically, right? Because Paul talks about where if you hear a different gospel than the one that I've preached to you today, be aware. And he's like, but be even more careful if you get told a different gospel from an angel. And so this brings me back to a few incidences, right? The one that you mentioned, where this guy had an encounter, right, with something, and it told him to bring him back the Bible, and they'll tell him what it's about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I believe that's some sort of fallen entity that is leading this person to a false gospel. Same thing with Muhammad. Muhammad was told by an angel, hey, I need you to rewrite a religion that counteracted against, the true gospel. And this is going on in so many aspects of the world throughout history and even in our day today, where people are channeling entities and they're telling these people, what the real meanings of life are or whatever. I think it's all a deception to build up a belief system for when they do come here, like you said, that they will be worshiped as the creators of this world and God, if that makes any sense, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's so funny, right? Because how Satan moves and how Lucifer, does his how he creates his models is by stealing some of the recipes from God, but then on how God did things, but he doesn't get the whole recipe. So therefore it's kind of like counterfeited. It looks the same, but it's not. And so, if, and I believe Jesus was God and he came here and he did all these things. Well, what did Jesus do? Jesus healed people. He actually healed the paralyzed man to walk again. He raised someone from the dead. So in that like manner, in a counterfeit way, so won't these fallen gods, right? Or these fallen angels or these gods, right? Coming back from the antediluvian epoch. They're going to be doing these things. They could be doing these things through technology for sure. They could be doing it maybe with just their supernatural abilities. They're walking around and they're just doing all these things to get people to believe into their religion, because it's the miracles that really made people believe in Jesus. It's like they followed him. They didn't really believe him, and but then he did these things, and they were like, okay, like I'll die for that. But I see the counterfeit working up in the future for, like, if these aliens were to come here and to do the same thing, me personally, I would believe that that's like a deception, right?
Mm.
It looks so true, but it's not what actually. It's a deception, right? You just don't know it to be. You don't know if you're being deceived unless you actually know what the truth is. But you brought up another thing too, where technology, right? Like, uh, you said something where, um with these they we're making all this technology, but how are we kind of getting it in a certain way? And I think that this goes back to where we even have groups or departments or programs where we've got channelers channeling these things from this other realm, getting information to make technology, right? It's like you take a massive mushroom trip, which I've done in the past, and I've actually had encounters with entities, so I know that they actually really do exist.
Hmm.
But they give you information and knowledge. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And even a buddy of mine, it helped him get through medical school. It's like, what? Okay, so if that is possible to happen, then it makes me think of like the Thule Society. The Thule Society being, Hitler's uh, sorcery program, witchcraft program, pretty
Right.
much, right? Where what were the Germans really good at? They were good at making stuff. They had the best technology for warfare. It just is what it is. They just ran out of money. Um, but they got that information from that other realm that they were kind of plugging into, getting that knowledge and all that kind of stuff. And with the third temple, I think you're right. Could be like this big landing pad for like, or this stage for these things to come here and to show themselves as the gods of this world.
Mhm.
But then biblically, it says that the Antichrist will go into the temple and claim himself to be, God, if that makes any sense.
Right.
So it's like you see the counterfeit kind of what I'm
Yeah.
kind of getting into. I
Yeah,
mean, even
absolutely.
just like there's a United Nations base on top of Mount Hermon. I think this one really settled it in for me. I was like, oh my gosh, they know. Like, there's a United Nations base on top of Mount Hermon, which in the Book of Enoch, when it talks about the fallen angels that rebelled against God,
Mhm.
because they want to be like God, they want to take His position, if that makes sense.
Right.
Because they were here first before us. They don't like humans anymore because we got the birthright, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
We were given dominion over the world, right? They don't like that. They're jealous. But, you know, there's a United Nations base on top of Mount Hermon. And I'm like, what the hell is that doing there? Unless you're using this place as a sacred ground from thousands of years ago of what happened in the past. I don't know. I don't know what to make of all of it, but it's all
Or
it's
they're
all making me
communicating with them,
sweat.
you know?
Yeah,
Maybe.
they're communicating with them. Right, right. I think so. I do. I think so. It could be pretty, complex maybe, or it could be simple. I don't really know exactly what's going on behind closed doors, but we've seen movies like Eyes Wide Shut and things like that, that there's these
Right.
rituals that take place. We talked about the Bohemian Grove. These might be all surface level things, but they really might be connecting with a lot of that stuff, man. But guys, thank you so much, man. This was a banger of an episode. I'm
Heck yeah.
excited to release it out on Monday for the audience. And I would definitely love to share this content with you guys, a few weeks after that. And, just for you guys, because you guys came on and gave a one heck of a show, man. This little bit of time, the floor is yours. If you want to leave any last messages for the audience, you guys can go ahead and take a couple minutes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Strange Sauna Conspiracies, you can find us on YouTube. We try to do live shows every Friday. We recently just switched up the content of our show. We used to kind of do like deep dives. We still might every now and then.
Yep.
But right now, we're really just taking videos and exploring different concepts, different conspiracies, ghosts, you name it. Basically, anything that sparks the interest in a video that you should watch, right? And so we're on Rumble as well, all audio platforms, Apple, Spotify, all that. And get on Telegram, because Telegram is really kind of where we have a little community where we share everything, links, video, all the content that you guys need. So
it's awesome. Yeah,
Nice,
and thank
man.
you for having us.
yes,
A lot of fun. I sit very quietly sometimes because I'm learning from all this. Like, I really enjoy having guests because I'm learning a lot of stuff other than just the surface level stuff I come with. We're like, hey, guess what? This person did this. Taylor Swift just got married to this guy and all this stuff. So this is a lot of fun for me because I do love to learn from you, from everybody. So I appreciate that very much, Stephen and Greg.
I know. Yes, yeah. Thanks again, Stephen. This was awesome.
Yeah, man. Thank you guys. Flex, I love it. I love I love the yin and yang that you guys have together. I
Yeah.
think it's an awesome duo dynamic. It's great. You know, if my co-host would ever get here and show up to work, you know, you guys would also see it too. You know, because I'm more like the theologian and the researcher, and Jesse's like the political analyst, and
Yeah.
and he's just simple man.
Yeah.
Simple,
Gotcha.
simple Jack.
I'm the comic relief because you need it
Yeah,
sometimes. Bro, you need it, honestly.
No,
Not
you
to
need
say
it.
Greg isn't either, because we can say some funny stuff, but we got to keep it lighthearted because you can really just go numb with all this stuff. You know,
No,
go
I
numb,
agree.
go numb
I
and dumb
agree.
is what I say.
I agree, man. So I'm really looking forward to hopefully making some more content with you guys in the future. This was a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
What a great opportunity to get you guys on. I really like your show. It's growing, and you know, we're all running the race to get to this finish line. And I don't even think there is a finish line at the end of it, but
No.
we're all here together, baby. We're pushing each other, and I love it, man. And I really enjoy what you guys do for the community, folks. Make sure you go ahead and check out their platforms. Everything will be linked in the description below. But thank you, Flex. Thank you, Greg. I had a
Thank you.
great time, guys.
Thank you.